everyone. Thank you for coming. So, are you guys ready to talk about AI? Yeah. I'm really excited for this panel today. We have an amazing lineup of panelists that we're really excited to jump into this discussion. Today we're going to ask the question, how artificial is your intelligence? And up here today with me is Nathalie Krup. She is the head of agencies at Microsoft. We've got Larry Adams. He is the founder and CEO of Stereotype, a group Black collective member focused on AI. And we also have Cheryl Guerin, AVP, Global Brand Strategy and Innovation at MasterCard. Please give them a round of applause. So we are going to just jump straight in because I'm sure, there's a lot to talk about as in the world of AI, and we're really excited to sort of jump in here. So the first question is to the full panel. As we're seeing AI becoming more prominent in our workflows every day, it feels like I'm using AI in almost everything I'm doing now. I'd love to just hear from each of you guys in terms of the specific concerns that you may have related to the integration of AI.
I can jump in first, and first of all, thank you so much for having me here, Asha. I'm super excited to be here as an ally, to contribute, to learn as well. And I think there's a saying I think about a lot when we think of new technology, which is the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. And I think that really gets to the heart of what we want to speak to today. And there's such incredible, you probably have all heard it today and yesterday at this conference, like potential that we have in these technologies, but only if they are able to be built by, used by, improved by a wide audience. Right. And when we think about the audiences that we care for and we build for, it's creators, consumers, and advertisers. So how do you make sure that there's just a healthy ecosystem built around that, I think is one of the key concerns.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. I think for us, our worry is who's training the data. How are we infusing the outcomes to actually reflect ourselves? And that's really what we spend a lot of time thinking about, is how do we bring our lived experience to actually come to life in AI and actually not be a false reflection of actually who we are as people. And so that keeps me up at night, and that's some of the things that we're all actively working towards.
Good. Great. Yeah, I would bounce right off of that and say, we build a brand on trust. It's like the most important thing and the most important quality for your brand. And the minute you break that trust, we've got major issues for our brands. And this has such great potential, AI and Gen AI. I mean, AI, we all know, has been around for a long time, but the Gen AI, it has so many opportunities, but it has so many chances of it going wrong. And I think, how we think about and build for it in a way that's responsible, that's ethical, and importantly, and I know we'll talk about today, is inclusive, right? Because that's the biggest danger of it all, that we actually use this technology and don't take an opportunity to get this right from the start.
Yeah, and it's so true, and I think all of you guys sort of touched on that, and that building AI that's inclusive is not just important for diverse audiences, it's important to creating the best technology that we can create, right? And I think that is really key. And Cheryl, you really touched on trust, and this is another question for the group here. Would love for you all to really elaborate on why we believe that there is skepticism, right? We've all read the blogs, right? Why do we think that there's currently skepticism, particularly as it relates to discussions around, Web3 and, of course, AI and Gen AI as well?
Yeah, I think it's okay to be honest and reflect on where there have been, deficits in the past. So if you think about things like discriminatory or predatory algorithms that have real world effects and are not inclusive, or facial recognition technology, that product is less good. It's
Yeah.
not as superior because there was a lack of inclusiveness in building
Yeah.
something like that. So I think that it's okay to talk about where there have been failures in the past and then use that as a way to guide where we can go in the future.
Yeah.
I definitely think there is this idea that like somehow AI is from the future and grabbing things to project out where we should be when
Yeah.
it's actually pulling from historically where we've been. And so much of what we actually, when we talk about inclusion, it's actually inclusion for us as consumers and as business leaders to lean in and actually start to guide how this data is being processed by AI. AI is a means to an end. It's not like this future state. It's actually enabling. So I think the thing that is driving this is it's about inclusion, but it's about all aspects of inclusivity. We look at a lot of bias in AI, but like not just from a diversity experience, but also like there's ageism bias. There's a lot of different views that like get infused into these outcomes that we all have to sort of lean in and start to train and create sort of more signals for AI to actually move away from where we've been to where we are today and where we're going in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot that is scary, right? When we talk about AI, people are worried about jobs being displaced. The data sets, to your point, if it starts with biased data that goes in, and historically most data starts that way, then that's where the problems are. So, you know, we all have to be really thoughtful about what goes in and make sure that we're not building off of bad data in the first place.
Yeah, and I think that's so true, what each of you guys are saying. And, you know, Cheryl, just to kick it back over to you, for those who may not know, MasterCard is truly dedicated to making a difference, right? You recently partnered with Group Black to collaborate on the launch of a brand new Gen AI tool, which we are super excited about. And this tool was specifically designed to address inherent bias.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm unbelievably proud and excited. We're actually in the middle of building and testing right now. It's small business AI, and you know, obviously, we all know small businesses are the lifeblood of the economy. You know, the reality is, again, another place where people may not have access to the right information, data, mentorship, and you know, we've done this, and we have programs that are amazing. Where we work with cities and we go and do road shows. But how do you get this at scale? The education, get tools into the hands of business owners, cybersecurity tips, where to open your next location, how to manage a shop online. And, you know, Gen AI gives the opportunity to scale this mentorship.
Yeah.
But what we're doing with Group Black and other media partners is we've created a media coalition. Again, what goes in? So we're starting with tons of content coming from Group Black, Televisia, Univision, Blavity, and others, and it's coming in with diverse voices in the first place and building that large language model. So that we get all the right information. And guess what? It's to your point, if we get that right, it will be more useful for everyone, actually. So we're excited about that. Stay tuned, coming soon. But it should really actually help a lot of people.
Yeah, it's so important because we hear about entrepreneurship and what that means to diverse communities. And we don't talk enough about the inherent bias that some of these small business owners face as they're looking to elevate and grow their businesses. And I think that, you know, MasterCard's commitment to really supporting that is crucial. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your partnership.
Thank you. So I'm going to kick it over to Nathalie. You know, how do you define trust within the context of technological advancements like Web3 and AI? You know, we know that Microsoft is doing a ton in this space. You've been in the news just a little bit, you know. Congratulations on the stock. So why is it essential for fostering innovation and inclusivity?
It's such a good question. I have a deep background in market research specifically, so we ask consumers, how do you define trust?
Yeah.
And it's responsibility, values, and inclusion. So inclusion is a core part of how consumers themselves are defining trust. And now, why is trust important? We're kind of throwing the term around, right? The way we look at it, it's very important because the consumers demand it, but also, and here's kind of a link some people don't always make, there are real business impact to trust. So a couple stats I'll throw out are, in some research that we did recently, we saw that 85% of consumers only buy from brands that they know and trust. And when we specifically tested creatives in ad copy that were inclusive versus non-inclusive, 70% preferred the inclusive, and 23-point lift in purchase intent from an inclusive ad versus you're selling the same product, but the visual, the representation is not inclusive at all.
Right.
And so when you see the fact that you can directly tie a consumer need to a business goal, I think it comes to the point where businesses can't really ignore it.
Yeah.
And we also see the cost on the flip side of not being trustworthy, right? So when you've lost brand trust, actually 48% of consumers say they've stopped buying from a brand that they don't trust anymore. And if you look at a diverse audience, they are the highest among all the demos at over 53% saying that.
Yeah.
So you are risking alienating a huge buying population. We were just talking backstage that
there's about a $3 trillion upside, $3 trillion in spending power for diverse audiences in the US. So by not specifically making a point, not to just reach them, but to resonate with them, you are actually not taking home your fair share of that financial pie, right? And you know, we talk a lot about connecting with diverse audiences and inclusivity. This is not just the right thing to do in the world, it's the right thing to do for your business, right? When we see the Census Bureau coming out with data that indicates that 100% of the growth in the US right now is coming from diverse audiences, you really just can't afford not to.
And a lot of companies may not know the how, and I think that's where we have a huge investment in inclusive marketing.
Yeah.
So we have marketing with purpose, we have inclusive marketing, and we'll talk in a bit about inclusive prompt engineering. So we're really trying to not just say the why you should do something, but the how, to equip creators, consumers, and advertisers with the tools they need to make this a reality.
Yeah, and I think that it's key, and some of the things that you're saying actually, some of the things you're saying dovetail quite nicely into X-Stereotype and what Larry actually has to offer. You know, we at Group Black, we partner with X-Stereotype to measure resonance of ad units, you know, and we've seen some of the information that you just said, Natalie, in real life. We're testing creative that Group Black has developed with an inclusive group of creators that are using the products in really organic ways to how they use them in their lives, sometimes outside of how the brand even thought. And some of these assets are overperforming even traditional commercial content. And so it's just so important. And we love how X-Stereotype has this really unique ability to measure that.
One of the things that underpins inclusivity and belonging is authenticity. And so what we've actually found is a measurable and sort of normalized way to understand authenticity at scale. And what we see is actually a 0.8 correlation, I'm sorry to get mathy, that's me, between feelings of inclusion and authenticity and purchase intent. So this is like a no duh, but like from an AI perspective and a math perspective, quantifying this and actually then being able to replicate it at scale through AI gets you there so much faster. So what we would have taken, you know, a couple weeks and maybe a month of research to find, we actually find in 5 minutes and give you guys and other people the answers. Because at the end of the day, as marketers, which we all are, we're all about growth and like, where's the growth coming from? To Asha's point, it's all coming from all of us, you know, this room, that everyone that looks and feels like us. It's not this past view of us, it's who we are today and what we're becoming more and more of.
And Larry, you can say 5 minutes. We're going to stick to 48 hours, just so when people are looking for their reports.
Yeah. I guess for us it's 5 minutes, but yes. For my team.
And also X Stereotype was named Adweek's 2023 AI Innovation of the Year. So congratulations on that award.
Well, also, not to toot our own horn, but we were just named number 6 on Fast Company's most innovative companies in the enterprise space. So we actually work with a lot of customers.
We can clap for that. We can clap for that.
Well, I'm very proud of that, not only because we started it like 36 months ago, but because we're the only Black-owned company on that list in enterprise solutions, which is kind of cool. I was like, oh, that's really cool in a technology space and focusing on enterprise, which, you know, the intent of what all of this started out with for entrepreneurs like myself was like, how do we change so that we feel more included and like in the center of these decision making? The only way to do that is to create tools to help everyone in this room feel connected to diversity experience, to inclusion, and to understanding and belonging. So I'm really proud of what the team got to do, and you're absolutely right. There's a huge team behind me. I see things and it happens in 5 minutes, but then there's people that go behind me and make sure it actually happens and looks great.
It's 5 minutes, 2 days. You know, this question, I'd actually love to get everyone's perspective on it. You know, we're talking about artificial intelligence, but I want to turn that on its head a little bit. And probably the opposite of artificial is human, right? And to just sort of double click on that a little bit, I would love to hear how you guys are feeling around, do we feel like we're losing a bit of humanity with the integration of AI and Gen AI in our lives? And if so, what are ways to hold on to it? We're not going anywhere.
I'll jump in on that. And, you know, it's one of these things that's really interesting. You know, I manage brand and branding globally. And, you know, one of the things that started to happen as this technology, everybody's testing and playing, is all of a sudden, tons of product owners are coming out with their avatar, you know, for their product. And, you know, it's one of these things where you have to take a step back and say, who are we as a brand and what do we want to portray? And we've always been about humanity, genuine, authentic, human. And these are core, and inclusive. And these are core principles. So as you think about, you know, what are the principles for your brand and how you play? Yes, ethical, responsible, inclusive on the data side, but then what do you want to portray, you know? And we don't want avatars, so we said, you know what? No one's, from a brand perspective guideline, principle, no avatars from us. You know, if our customers are trying to build them, we can help them, but we're not, but for our brand, that's not what we want. As you look at your marketing, you know, it's a like shiny object. Oh, we could have an ad created in an instant. Do you really want, you know, not authentic humans, non-humans, meta-humans, whatever you want to call, in your advertising? And for us, the answer is no. You'd stick to the principles. So like we'll build our website with beautiful images generated with Gen AI, beautiful backgrounds, but then we use real people. We're not going there. So it's something everybody needs to think about as like what are the set of principles that we'll operate under?
Yeah, I mean, to me, there's like 2 tracks of it. One is AI helps me do my job faster and better, and then I can go and have friends again. But then there's the other side of like how I'm represented in the ecosystem of digital. And so I think to Cheryl's point, like humans are at the center point of that. And when we see things that like we find out are deep fakes, we feel so betrayed, like beyond betrayed. And I think especially like, I think as most people feel, it's like, well, hold on, we weren't represented, now we're synthesized and we're left out of the loop. So I think there's just a lot of inertia around like skipping over the humanity, and I think that consumers will start to push back on those deep fakes, those weird synthetic images. But at the other side of that, like AI is not bad. It's helping us to understand things much, much faster, write things that no one really cares about that much, but has to get done, and also to just think of things differently, and also build things in different ways, and not be constrained by this organized set of data that needed to be cleansed and structured in a way that became useful. Now it's very much about unstructured data. Like, give it unstructured data, find some clusters, and now you have a business, or you have a new insight, or you have a growth strategy. So I think it's a double-sided sword, but I think the more that we all lean in and become more educated about not only the potential positives, but the potential risks, and sort of manage to a place of positive outcomes, I think it's going to be it's going to be so much more fun. Like, I'm going to not have to do all those emails.
So wait, that wasn't you writing me that email?
It was my bot. It was the Larry bot.
No, I definitely, I'm a bit of a nerd, if people can tell, but I'm definitely playing that game of like spot the 6 fingers. Like if it's an AI generated metahuman, as Cheryl said. Natalie, any thoughts you want to add to this?
Yeah, they said it so well. I think, part of our mission statement is helping every person on the planet to achieve more.
Yeah.
So it's very based in the human.
Yeah.
And when we look at the actual use cases that we are seeing for our Copilot products at work, it's to automate rote tasks, right? It actually frees up human time for more of that high-value creative work. And we certainly don't think it's going to replace human creativity. It's going to amplify human creativity. So I think there's the goal of where it's going to go, and then also the really positive beginnings of research that we're getting back that's showing that is how it's used. And the best way to do it is really go out and start experimenting. Like, I do it, I have my team do it. It becomes less of a scary unknown the more that you interact with it. So I think that can also really help to bring the human element into the technology.
Yeah, and I think, you're bringing up a point that I think is a really important distinction around leveraging AI, Gen AI, to empower your business versus leveraging it in your personal life, right? And whether it's leveraging it to help you be more creative in your endeavors, or helping you, as in MasterCard's case, to elevate your small business, right? I think that there's 2 very distinct ways, and when we talk about integrating AI into our business practices, I feel like there's a lot more acceptance in that capacity. And when we talk about kind of elevating in our personal lives, or how do we integrate it, that's where I think maybe some more of the education comes in, and more of that learning curve as people start to get more comfortable kind of using it more often, right?
I totally agree, and if I can, to say something about the learning curve, like, people have to be trained. This is not something we innately know how to do.
Yeah.
And I've been getting really into what we call our inclusive prompt engineering.
Yeah.
So if anyone remembers the 5 years that were the year of mobile, and then the 5 years that were the year of content, mobile's king, content king, I feel like now is definitely the year of prompts, or will be for some time.
Yeah.
So I think what's really interesting here is we actually did a bunch of research looking at when you're generating creative specifically for ad copy, and you want it to be inclusive, like, how do you do that, right? Like, we don't know how to do that. And so we identified these 3 metaphors of connection, openness, and balance. And we actually identified 50 discrete words that help lead to a more inclusive generative outcome.
Wow.
And so all of that, we've actually published a playbook on inclusive prompt engineering. And something that I think is fascinating is we give examples. So we give, here's a good prompt that you can use for X outcome, here's a better prompt, and here's the best one.
Yeah.
And kind of, really break it down into, here are the words you want to use, here's the tone you want to set. And I think it's just like anything, it's something we have to be upskilled at.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I mean, that is such an important tool, that we have to be trained. I mean, and who better to train us than Microsoft? I remember Clippy, the little paperclip guy that taught me how to use. Anybody remember Clippy? Anybody here?
Yes,
yeah, you remember Clippy.
Precursor to the chatbot.
So this is just the next gen AI version.
I also think this is like an unlock for free thinking. Finally, so much of my career has been like, okay, well, that's not how we do things. Here's how we do things. Now we're getting to a place where you can actually enable free thinking and thinking literally outside the box. And to Nathalie's point, thinking outside of your own experience and actually pulling in more and getting more done. So I'm really optimistic and fired up about AI in the future, obviously. But as just a free thinker and a curious person, you can actually get a lot done now. And you can actually make things come to life that would have taken so many different paths and created just so much more work for yourself. You're like, well, I don't want to do that. But now it's like, well, I can leverage a couple tools and actually create something. And I think that we're gonna it's almost like I feel like we're in the middle of a renaissance, if you will. It's like a rebirth of a lot of free thinking and a lot of doing and creating things from scratch really, really fast. I just remember, to your point about Clippy, it's like we had the broadband thing, then we had mobile, then we had social media, and it was just so much time between that. Now it's like, oh, you're doing videos on demand. You're doing, things are just happening so fast. So it's really encouraging, and the momentum itself is actually building on itself. So I feel like it's just creating this inertia. As you know, from my perspective, this is an excellent chance and an opportunity for especially people of color, of marginalized audiences to grab it, get out there and start to do things, because this is that renaissance creates opportunity that were not available to us before, just because of the structure of technology and how things were really siloed and behind pay gates and behind corporate structures. Now we can get at all that stuff and start putting things together. I love the small business aspect because they're competing with global entities. It's like you go to Google search and you do a zip code search and you're trying to find a mom and pop. You're not trying to find a mom and pop. That's what your expectation is. Boom, there's a global, a multinational there, and now you're competing with them. So AI actually gives us all the tools to compete outside of our weight class, and I think that's really exciting.
I was going to say, again, all these, every time the technology comes up, it's like, well, what can we do with it that's meaningful? It's less about, it's what it enables, right? And so last year we launched the Artist Accelerator program, and it was about educating artists how you make music in Web3. And then we provided a Gen AI music studio. It wasn't to create the music for them at all, but it was to get people interacting that might not have access to a studio or producers or mentors, again, and it gets them creating music comfortable with AI, and it is an accelerator. It just helps accelerate their learning and then accelerate their artistry. And then this year now, we've got this class of artists going through this, and then we're actually going to put them on tour with Ones to Watch. So after they make their music, so it's we're creating a music tour, but behind the scenes, we're really just educating on these technologies and capabilities and how you pursue your passions with them.
That is so fascinating. I mean, you're talking about accelerating artistry. Larry's talking about we're living in a renaissance. Maybe Beyonce was onto something. Okay, so can you believe it? We're at the last question, It feels like we just got up here, right? And so, as last questions go, we're going to look to the future, right? And the future is now. It feels like we are living in the future. And, a lot of the things that we probably saw on TV are things that we have in our pocket now, which is absolutely fascinating. But at the same time, we still need to make sure that the world that we're living in reflects the people that are living in it as well. And that's really what inclusivity is, right? Inclusivity, the people on this panel have the ability to make decisions that can create a more inclusive world, essentially. And so, you guys have talked about some of the things that you're doing, but again, as we look at the future and what are some things that are on the horizon, what are you all seeing as opportunities to creating not only a more inclusive landscape, but a more equitable one that provides, more access in the future?
It's such a good question. I hope it's the start of a conversation rather than just the last question, which I think it will be. So from our perspective, it's so much of what we talked about today. And I think that can be summed up in the idea of responsible AI. And this is something that Microsoft actually committed to with 6 principles. It's fairness, transparency, privacy, safety, accuracy, and inclusion is one of the principles. So we're really looking to build ground-up inclusive products built by inclusive people, for inclusive people, and used by diverse audiences. So one thing I found really interesting is that we have a Chief Responsible AI Officer.
Oh.
Which, sitting here today, like, we're probably not the only one.
Yeah.
I get it. I think what surprised me, even in research I was doing to come here, is that position has existed for 5 years within Microsoft.
Wow.
And we have been doing research on responsible AI specifically for almost a decade. So I feel very confident sitting up here today saying, like, this is something that we really invest in. We have structures throughout all of our org to make sure we have responsible AI champions. And if you look at many of the things I talked about, our responsible AI playbook, our inclusive prompt engineering playbook, really anything on LinkedIn Learning. There's so many resources, many available for free to just try to help the consumer, the creator, the advertiser learn. But I think probably the most important thing is we ourselves are on a path of learning and understanding. So part of the reason I'm here and my team's here and that we want to engage in these conversations is to hear back from the people that are using our products, because that is the only way that it will truly improve, is for people to use it and to have thoughts about it. So please come find me if you have thoughts about it. If you want our playbooks, let's definitely make this a start of the conversation, because that really is the only way that we will all learn together and get to that future that I think we all are all excited about. Just has to be done in the right way.
I love what you said, Natalie. For me, it was like, do something, right? And so it was not complain, for me, it was not complain about an issue of feeling underrepresented in technology and where technology intelligence was headed, which is AI. It was, let's create new data signals and new ways to feed the learning of these algorithms. And so I would like say everyone has the power to actually influence how outcomes for technology play out, because we interact with tools and we can actually give feedback in a lot of places. So I think it's seeing something and saying something, and also if you have an idea, pursue it, leverage AI, get involved, and actually bring something to life that hadn't been there before. And I think that's what the future is going to be about. And I think that having more folks engage in this ecosystem will create that equality that we're looking for, that representation that we're looking for. It's really about, like, how do we feed the Microsoft systems about our points of view, and vice versa. They provide value for us, and it goes back and forth. So I think that more involvement, more leaning in, and more experimentation and trying things.
Yeah, I'm going to go right back to the people and the human, because every time we've been able to innovate or design for inclusion, it just starts with people hearing what happens in their life, how they experience your products, and sometimes it'll shock you to understand what you've missed along the way. And so listening, learning, and doing something about it, then that's how it. I don't see another way. No tech, just maybe good old-fashioned research and listening.
Yeah.
Who would have thunk it? Well, thank you so much, everyone. I am Asha Davis. Thank you so much, Natalie, Larry, Cheryl, for joining us today on this stage. Hope you guys enjoyed the panel.
Thank you. Our pleasure. Thank you.
Congratulations. Oh, sure.
Come on in.
I was just going to say something interesting. You guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I just happened, how are you? I just happened to actually
Oh, wait.
Picture.
Hello? Testing.
I happened to host the Microsoft AI Summit the other day. And it was interesting because the question on the humanity component came up. And, I shared a story. My best friend, who's actually back down here, who went with me to Cancun to host, came in and was frantic. AI is going to take over our life. Oh my God. I was like, calm down. I said, watch this. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen AlphaGo. It's a movie on the first testing of, of AI learning to play Go, and Go is the hardest game, right? And at first, it beats the European champion. This guy's distraught. But then they go, no, come teach the AI to play the world champion. So they go, and everybody's like, there's no way the computer's gonna win. It's not even possible. First game, pew, wipes him out. Second game, pew, wipes him out. And he's like crying, his daughter's there. But in the second game, the computer played a move called the God move. And the God move is basically the computer realized that if I play this move, I'm gonna at least win by 1. Now, Go is about territory. So humans are like, I need the most amount of territory. The computer said a win is a win. Third game, pew, the guy gets wiped out. Fourth game, he wins. You're like, yes, humanity can win. Fifth game, pew, wiped out. But what happened was the game of Go was forever changed. And now the strategies that have been in place for centuries are now being transformed. And so my point is that AI is literally the humanity power that we give it. And it is human against human in real respect. So it's making us better. It's steel sharpening steel. So that's what I think is interesting about what the future holds for us. Anyway, if you like that little story, please stay for the 3 o'clock. See the CMO of Microsoft. Let's give another round of applause to the panelists. And we're excited.